How do I find my PowerPoint on this?
Is the flash drive plugged in? The right side?
No.
Should be sitting right there.
Only a style flashing. Let's Find God, an exploration of the dimensions with Chris Sefting. Okay, well, I assume you all know the first three dimensions fairly well, so I'm going to spend less time with these. As we see here, this is a zero-dimensional point. We all understand that. A one-dimensional line, a two-dimensional square, and a three-dimensional cube. But this is where things definitely get tricky. If we take a cube and we have it at point A, and we take that very same cube and move it all the way to point B, then in the fourth dimension, we see the cube at point A, point B, and then everywhere in between. We can imagine ourselves in the fourth dimension as a long snake-like being with our embryonic self at the start and our dead self at the end, with everywhere we've ever been in between. The fifth dimension can be imagined as a steady line of our past up until this very moment, as well as any possible scenario that could happen from this moment on. But what about the impossible scenarios? Imagine that this is you traveling on your fifth dimensional line, unsure of where to travel next. You begin to imagine a life in which you invented something great as a child and grew up rich and famous. But no matter where you go from that point, you can never jump over there. You can't go back in time. So you have two choices. You can invent a time machine, travel back, make the necessary changes, and then grow up rich and famous. Or you can take the easy way and just skip right over there. And that would be your sixth dimension. Now, this is an important concept that you guys really do need to understand. If your fifth dimension is, think of everything that's happened in your past as if it was just one long story or one long timeline, then you get to the point now and you don't know where it's going to go next. So any possible scenario that could happen from this very moment on is your fifth dimension. But your sixth dimension is the scenarios that aren't possible. Things that could have happened in the past that would have changed the outcome to what this very moment is, it would be completely different if you changed something in the past. So that would be your sixth dimension. Now that we have accounted for every possibility that dwells in the past, every possible resulting present, and every possible future available, we are left with a single point. Our past, present, future of our universe confined within one point, from the Big Bang until the end of times. And we're left with a point. It's infinity. Literally, our Big Bang, everything that could have happened, did happen, would have happened, should have happened, all confined within one point. Literally the infinity of our universe. That's the seventh dimension. Now things are just going to get weird from here on out. Because the eighth dimension, imagine a point, our universe, everything that could have happened since the entirety of existence. Imagine if the Big Bang had just been a little different. It had more matter, or less matter, or the laws of gravity are just a little different, or the speed of light is extremely slow. You start off with one point, which is our universe, and then there would be a completely different universe, a completely different infinity. A universe in which everybody has purple hair, or green eyes, or we don't exist at all. The things that connect us, the similarities and the differences, that's what makes the eighth dimension. So there could be a universe where John Jensen's a woman. There could be a universe in which Earth was never existed. There are universes that exist that are so unstable that they literally came into existence and then collapsed back upon themselves. There are dimensions where their eighth dimension literally accounts for almost everything. But then the ninth dimension. You have to imagine if this universe we all had brown hair, and in a different universe we all had red hair. Going through the eighth dimension would be the changing one hair out. Just the simple difference of one hair from brown to red. The ninth dimension, you would simply be jumping straight from brown hair to red hair. Just like in the sixth dimension, where we skipped the time machine and we just went over straight into a different world, the ninth dimension is jumping over into a different universe. So, now that we have imagined every possible scenario, past, present, future, for every possible timeline, for every possible universe, confined within a single point, that is the 10th dimension. It is literally the entirety of everything. Any possible scenario, ever, anything. It is everything, and that is the 10th dimension. Is the volume up on this? Does volume work? Do we know?
Oh god, this is gonna be all fun.
Here. I hope it works. Okay, it decided not to. I don't know why. Oh Fortuna should be blaring in the background. It should be big and dramatic, and everyone should be oohing and eyeing, but they're not. And it would have been really intense, but for some reason it's not. Okay. That should have been very intense. But really, in all seriousness, can we use these words to find God? I mean, how many people in here consider themselves to be Christian? Yes? So, we should all be fairly familiar with this. For God loved the world so much that he gave his only begotten Son, so that we may be saved. If God gave his only Son, then what about, or if God gave his only Son to this world, then what about dimensions in which this world is just a little different, or this world isn't considered this world? The first place that we would find that would be within the sixth dimension. So either God resides within the fifth dimension, or he just doesn't care about the other worlds. The possible scenarios that have happened in this world are the only ones that God likes, apparently. So this is me attempting to keep track of all these different ideas. So God could be found within the fifth dimension. Take this one, for example. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. If God knows where you've been, where you are, and where you will be going, then he must exist within the fifth dimension. This could take all day, so I'm going to go through and eliminate some of the dimensions from our possibilities. I'm assuming that we can eliminate 1 through 3, simply for the fact that the dimensions are so small that they cannot contain the attributes of God. God cannot be a single point because that would mean that we are above God, instead of God being above us. So I'm going to eliminate the first 3, just for simple reasons, but I'm going to leave the 4th. From these we can assume that God created everything in existence. But what if we imagine a universe in which there is more everything than there is in this universe? What if there's more matter, or more planets, or more suns? Then, what then? I believe that this idea excludes God from the 8th dimension due to the fact that there are other universes within the 8th dimension, thus putting God in the 7th dimension. The common concept of reincarnation reflects the idea that consciousness reanimates in another animal or person in the past, present, or future. We may draw the conclusion that the world in which we live is the only world that exists, and we just keep coming back over and over and over again, at least in the Hindu religion or in any other religion that believes in reincarnation. Anything other than this world is nirvana or oneness with God or escaping this world. So, thus a God that rules over only one world, he must reside within the 4th dimension, because it is one steady timeline that we are just reliving over and over and over again. There is no change, there is no difference. In the yoga philosophy, it is believed that through stillness of mind and meditation, one can achieve an understanding of the entire universe through interaction with God. You are exposed to a holy light, which is enlightenment. It is the understanding given by God. If this is the case, then God must reside within the 7th dimension yet again, in order to have the ability to grant such an all-encompassing understanding. So you can't be given that understanding from somebody who doesn't get it themselves. So in order to reach an understanding of the universe as its totality, then God must reside, again, within the seventh dimension. As you see here, the best guesses for where God resides, based on Scripture and some other worldviews, are the fifth dimension and the seventh dimension. But I'm also going to go ahead and include the 9th/10th dimension, simply for their all-encompassing nature. They are literally the idea of everything, any possible scenario that could be imagined for any universe ever within the 9th and 10th dimension. So I'm going to say that God has a possibility of being there if he is all-encompassing. And that, if the image was a lot clearer, is a nebula found out in space that looks like a perfect eye. And the resolution on my Mac's a little better, so if anyone wants to see that nebula, if they haven't seen it before, but it's just an image that I wanted to show people and ask if there are any questions. I mean, I know that this is really complicated stuff. We get into like quantum physics here, but that stuff I don't even understand. These are just the major concepts. So any questions or comments or ideas? Anything you're confused about, what dimensions mean, why God has to be in the 5th, 7th, or 10th dimension? Yeah.
Why did you say that the 7th dimension is the lowest dimension at which God can give knowledge to other people?
Because the understanding in yoga is that when you reach that enlightened state, you don't just see things as they are, you see things as they could be. It is a complete understanding of the way that things work, the patterns that are out there. Basically, you just understand. And so in order to have that understanding, at least from the way I'm interpreting it, in order to have that understanding of the universe in its totality, you would need to be given that information by some entity that already has that information. And so the 10th is the lowest possible dimension, which a God would understand everything in the universe and then be able to give it to somebody.
I wish your song would have played.
I wish so too. It was O Fortuna,
It was really
performed by the Boston Symphony. It was pretty epic.
You could make the argument that a given element of God, if you assume the Trinity, exists within the 5th dimension, yet as the Trinity is all in one, the whole of God is within the 7th.
Yeah, he could be. It is a true point. The Trinity of God would divide God into 3 separate parts, which you could even put, the Son onto the 3rd dimension, since he came down here and was one with us. If God's an interdimensional being, then God could have come down and become a human being, and so the Son would have been a 3-dimensional object, while the Father is a 7th-dimensional object, while the Holy Spirit is a 10th-dimensional object, and you can just put all 3 of them together and say that God is an interdimensional entity, and he can travel wherever he wants. But then you also have to understand the fact that just like a ball going through a 1-dimensional point, all you would see is it's that one line that just happens to be going through the 1st dimension. And so the only reason that we can't understand God is because it's like a ball trying to go into a 1-dimensional space. It would be a 10-dimensional object trying to come through a 3-dimensional space. There's no way that we could see him in its entirety. It's impossible.
That would work with knowledge as well.
That could work with the knowledge as well, unless you believe the fact that through meditation, just like in yoga, through meditation and all these different things, you can reach an enlightened understanding in which you actually, pretty much, I guess in this case, you'd be venturing to the 7th dimension.
But the soul has a higher dimension than the body.
The soul could have a higher dimension than the body. It's a possibility. Anything else? This is pretty biblical stuff.
I could play before too long.
Okay, well, if nobody else has
You
any...
should just play the song. Can you play it off the Mac?
Yeah, I could. It's everyone's heard it before. I guarantee everyone has. So it would have been, yeah, I got it, Cody. You would have seen it would have been all intense and dramatic. And then I would have apologized. Kind of. Okay, well that concludes my presentation.
monotone